The Gamecock was a general of partisan militia during the American Revolutionary War. His actions played a small yet significant role in the cause of American independence. After all, we don't often hear much about him when compared to Washington, Horatio Gates, John Adams, Ben Franklin, Nathaniel Greene, Paul Revere, etc. Yet he's still very important to us today. But who was he? What did he do? Why should we care? Was anything named after him? I'm glad you asked. Let me just say that if you are a Carolina Gamecocks fan, then this is your video. If you're not, this is still your video. So sit back, relax, grab a snack and a drink if you want, get comfortable, and let's get started. The Gamecock is then under General Thomas Sumter, who was given the nickname for his daring and fierce resistance against the British and for inspiring his men with energy and zeal. Also, the Carolina Gamecocks are named after him, as well as Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor and Sumter National Forest in northwestern South Carolina. But what made him so famous? What were his exploits? Thomas Sumter was born in Hanover County, Virginia, in 1734, and when he passed away on June 1st, 1832, at the age of 97, he was the last surviving American general of the Revolutionary War. He served in the French and Indian War, fighting the Cherokee, and even went with the Cherokee leader Osinaco to London to visit with King George III. When he returned to Virginia, he was arrested due to his debts. However, he escaped and fled to South Carolina. When the Revolutionary War broke out, he served during the Battle of Sullivan's Island and fought the Cherokee and the British in Georgia before retiring. Following Charleston's surrender in May of 1780, he escaped to North Carolina after the British burned his plantation to the ground. This made his fight against the British a bit more personal. In North Carolina, he was made Brigadier General of Carolina Militia and led his men to victory against the British outpost of Hanging Rock, though the outpost was left in enemy hands. And kind of a funny story about that, as his men were taking over the outposts and whatnot, his men started looting and they ended up getting into the rum supply and basically got drunk and anyways, that was why they were forced to leave the fort in enemy hands, because here they were getting drunk and the fort, there's still a battle going on for the fort. So anyways, he continued raiding and plundering British camps and outposts for supplies until he met with one of his worst defeats at the Battle of Fishing Creek at the hands of Bloody Band Tarleton, which I covered in my episode on Kings Mountain. Now, following the Battle of Kings Mountain, the Gamecock would have his chance at revenge. However, he would have to deal with another British force under Major James Weems. Now, Major James Weems was sent by General Cornwallis to hunt Sumter down while Tarleton was busy chasing after Francis Marion the Swamp Fox. So early in the morning on November 9th, Major James Weems, along with the 63rd Regiment and Loyalist Cavalry, decided to attack Sumter's camp at Fish Dam Ford before dawn, which ended up costing him. They attacked around 1 a.m., hitting the advance guard before moving on to the main camp, which became alerted to the attack. Major Weems was wounded early on, and when finally reaching the main camp, his men were silhouetted against the campfires, which made them easy to spot and hit. Some of the British dragoons went to Sumter's tent, were trying to capture him, but Sumter slipped out the back as the British were entering from the front. In the end, the British were beaten, and Major Weems was taken prisoner and paroled back to British lines. As for Charleston, he had given up his pursuit of the swamp fox and decided to go after the Gamecock instead. This would lead to the Battle of the Blackstocks, or Blackstock Farm. On November 20th, 1780, Charleston learned that Sumter was ahead of him by 2 hours at the Blackstock Farm. The farmhouse, barn, and outbuildings were built out of unchinked wood logs that had openings through which muskets could fire. And it was on a hill, which gave Sumter's men a huge advantage. This is also a strong rail fence to the left of the buildings. Sumter placed his men, including riflemen, in a defensive line along the farmhouse and outbuildings and on the fence. Although his men were untrained, he could not ask for better ground on which to fight. Charleston and 270 British dragoons and mounted infantry divided into 2 groups and prepared to face off against Sumter's 1,000 militiamen. 270 against 1,000. Wonder how that will play out. Now, Charleston did have other troops and cannon, which were left behind. And the reason for this is because Charleston wanted to catch Sumter before he could escape across the river, which was behind the farm. Okay, so he wanted to maximize speed over trying to catch Sumter, as opposed to bringing in the rest of his force, which could slow him down. However, that ended up costing him. He ended up underestimating Sumter and his men. Now, the fight began with the 63rd Regiment of Foot against Sumter militiamen, who were being driven back up a hill where they were reinforced by sharpshooters firing from the buildings. Sumter sent his cavalry after Charleston's cavalry, who were watching the battle unfold, and attacked them by surprise, though they were driven off. Then Charleston decided to charge the American lines with his cavalry, and unfortunately for him, the Americans had riflemen who were behind cover. Their infantry were dug in, and the lane leading to the farmhouse was covered with the bodies of men and horses. The British lost 92 dead and 100 wounded, whereas the Patriots lost 3 killed and 4 wounded, with one of the wounded being Thomas Sumter. The Americans had defeated a more experienced British force and proven that militia can be useful when used correctly by having them fire behind cover. Sumter, though wounded in the fighting, had gotten his revenge on Charleston for his defeat at Fishing Creek. After the battle, the Americans left the farm to the British, while Charleston reported back to Cornwallis about how he and his men had taken the field of battle and that Sumter would no longer trouble the British. This was true to an extent. The British held the field of battle and Sumter was seriously wounded, but other than that, it was American victory that would foreshadow the Battle of Cowpens, where another guerrilla fighter, the Wizard Owl, would use his militia to great effect. But who was this Wizard Owl? That will be the topic of our next video. Thank you all for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time on History Inquirer.